It's time for a tiny little PC review. This is an ACEMAGICIAN or ACEMAGIC. They often go by here. Tiny PC. Tiny little guy. You can see here, the actual model is the T8Plus. There's some different models here. This is a tiny PC, not a mini PC, a tiny, tiny, tiny PC. Silver, 16 gigabytes of RAM on this, 512 for storage, and that's the US model. This is a very tiny little mini PC. It's not meant to be an absolute powerhouse with, you know, an 8845HS or something like that that you could be using for gaming and that. This is meant to be a super tiny little guy. People might use it as like a little server type thing, or, you know, just casual computing, realistically, you know, Windows type stuff. Tiny, 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 tiny. Look at that. Look at that tiny little thing. I'm just gonna bring in, I have a Mac Mini over here hooked up. Just gonna show you how much smaller it is. All right, let's bring in this Mac Mini. This is the 2024 Mac Mini, like the tiny Mac Mini. People are like, it's so small. Look at this giant Mac Mini, right? It's way bigger. Right? The Mac Mini is a little bit taller, right? And the footprint is massively larger on a Mac Mini. I mean, it's still relatively small. The thing also weighs nothing in comparison. So, I mean, they're in, you may think, oh, just get a Mac Mini. Well, they're, first of all, Mac Mini costs, even being relatively cheap, much more money. It's running Mac OS. This is running Windows, right? And this thing is freaking tiny, but it actually, like, it looks like a little Mac Mini. Isn't that so freaking cute? Power button there, 3 USB on the side, USB 3 it looks like based on the blue. Audio out, and then you get your power in. 2 LAN ports, so 1, and then that would be a redundant realistically, because a lot of people I think are going to be using this as a little media server type device. You can use it as a daily driver, but I think a lot of people are going to use it as a media server. So if one goes down, you have the second, right? Well, ventilation. Right side, you get triple HDMI. Very cool. Okay, I'm going to open it. I mean, there's probably not anything crazy going on inside, but I still want to open it. So, looks like it's going to be relatively easy to open here. Okay, it was actually really easy to take off. I just used like the guitar pick style that I use on laptops. I went around there and it came off. I just wasn't sure what I was doing. And you can see, put that down, the fan there. Again, not a powerful APU in here, CPU, so it shouldn't need, you know, crazy cooling. That should be fine. I don't know how I'm going to get a thing in there. I'll have to get a different type of screwdriver to open that up. Okay, bottom is easy enough to take off, just those 4 screws. And here's a look inside. It's actually a decent fan, realistically, for such. So it's actually a decent little fan for such a small APU. And just the ports there. And there's your look inside, power button. And there's your look underneath. Okay. Oh, so I guess it's soldered RAM. Interesting. Yeah, so I guess they use a little soldered motherboard. So it has 16 gigabytes of RAM. I guess it is soldered, so not upgradable. So just make sure you get the RAM you want. 16 gigabytes is, it's more than enough for this thing here. Nice little 2242 size SSD, so that is upgradable. 512 King spec is not like a major OEM, but it's not a not a trash brand. You can buy them on Amazon and stuff, so that's fine. I've actually had a few of them. Very good. So yeah, nice little PCB there. CMOS battery underneath there if need to be serviced later. Your Wi-Fi is stuck to the top. Looking pretty good, realistically. Interestingly, soldered Wi-Fi, soldered RAM, which makes more sense. I was kind of wondering how they would get an actual SODIMM stick in here on top of all of that. So, okay, here we are set up beside that Mac Mini that makes it look even more tiny. The Mac Mini is supposed to be small. It's like twice the size of that, if not more. We're updating Windows. Right, you can see that there. Let's check the noise while doing Windows updates. That's normally something that does actually, updating Windows is something that normally does take cause a lot of noise. It's basically silent. It's around my noise. I think I can, I can hear the fan, the fact that it's on, but you can't actually hear the fan. You'd have to like intentionally focus on it. It's as silent as any fan I've ever heard, realistically. Besides that, we'll just have a quick look at the specs on this model here. Intel N100, 4 cores, no threads, just 4 logical cores. It's fine. I've used the N100 on many different devices. It's not a powerhouse, not meant for, you know, doing 4K video editing and high-level encoding. You can actually do 4K video editing on that legitimately, and you'll have, the process will be fine. It's not going to be crazy output. It's not going to be crazy for renders or anything like that, but you can actually do real work on this thing legitimately. But it's more meant for, you know, being like a little server type thing or doing Windows type workflow. It's going to be more than enough in most cases for that. RAM 16 gigabytes. I guess it's soldered, so it's going to be 3200 megahertz. Again, totally fine for what it is. Row of chips. Totally fine. That's that King Spec NVMe. We'll test the speed. Overall, I've seen that brand to be fine. I actually had a couple of them the other day. No problem. Realtek Wi-Fi should also be fine. I don't foresee any issues with that. And your Intel graphics, so nothing crazy for there. So we'll test it out now. I'm gonna actually let it update for a while, get everything updated here, and just kind of go through it, and we'll just test it out and see how well it runs. I don't think this is gonna be a complicated one. It either does what it's supposed to do, or it does not do what it's supposed to do. I suspect it's going to do what it's supposed to do. Okay, let's check the supported display resolutions. So you can do 60 Hertz at ultra wide 1080p. Let's go up a bit here. Check the bandwidth is basically what we're doing. So we'll try some 1440p. 1440p you can do, well, 60 Hertz close enough. So you can definitely do 1440p. Right, it's gonna look weird on this screen, but 1440p, that's fine. Let's see 4K. Yeah, it's doing 4K 60 as well. Again, a little stretched here. Okay, there's the SSD speeds. Looks like it's just a SATA drive, which is fine realistically. There's the SSD speeds there. It's a SATA drive, which is fine. Overall, for what you're probably going to do with this, people might think you need Gen 7 drive with 75,000 megabytes a second, but you don't realistically. This is going to be just fine for running Windows. Faster would be better, but that's fine. No problems with that, whatever. Let's get the Cinebench here. This is something that should matter to a lot of people. Okay, it's not going to be a super powerful CPU by any means. It's meant for, basically being like a media server or something like that, or just browsing. So it's not going to be super fast, but let's check the temperature here. It's nothing realistic. Absolutely nothing here for temperature. 71, 72, 73, 33 degrees to the max. There's no noise. There's noise from my vents on my floor. This is winter here. But there's no sound, realistically. There's no sound there coming out of that. You can't really hear it, to be honest. I guess if it was right in front of you on your head, you might be able to hear it, but over here I can't hear it. The mic might, I'm not sure. You can probably hear the vents on the floor going off. But yeah, let's come back with this. Okay, scores are done here. Did it run, this one? And 2,728, a little bit behind an i7 11th Gen 1165 G7. That's coming in at 3.7. This is coming at 2.7, so it's going to be more than fine for Windows 11 day-to-day use browsing. Okay, and the ports on the front look to be 5 gigabit ports. I'm actually running a 10 gigabit cable with a USB 4 enclosure, so it could technically do faster, but we're going to be getting 5 gigabit speeds. That's totally fine. That's going to be as fast as a SATA SSD can do anyways. Speed test here. I don't have good reception in this area of my house. That's one of the reasons I like to test it here rather than moving downstairs, and it's doing well. Nice and flat. 150, that's probably just basically what kind of speeds we're going to get here. Yep, that's fine. I can get a little bit faster, so that's probably going to be not the huge reception, but it'll be totally fine. You're probably hooking this thing up to Ethernet, but for Wi-Fi, it'll still get the job done here. Now, of course, this is not a gaming computer. It's not meant for heavy gaming by any means. However, you can play a lot of games on it. This is Sea of Stars, which is one of the best games of 2024. 1080p, right? 60, no problem here. Right? So you're going to be able to play games like this, less demanding titles. You're going to have an absolute freaking blast, especially because these games are becoming more and more popular. This is a 2024 title. You're going to have no problem playing older titles from 2020 or earlier on the CPU, even though it's a tiny little wattage on the CPU. Like, it's not even maxed out. It's only using 6.5. It's just, it can do more. It just doesn't need to. So you can play even more demanding games than this for sure. Even from now, you can play 2020 titles that are much more demanding with no problems whatsoever. And of course, it's going to be really good for things like emulation as well, because the N1000, it's not a super powerful CPU, but for things like this, it's going to be more than capable, right? This is going to be a great experience for a lot of people in a game like this. So there's going to be hundreds of thousands of games you can play on this PC. Just don't expect to be playing Starfield at 4K, right? That's not going to happen. But for games like this, no problem.